The apartment smelled like burnt coffee and broken promises. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the eviction notice taped to our refrigerator, my hands trembling as I calculated for the third time that morning. Rent was due in 4 days, and my bank account showed $47. The interview I'd been sure about last week had sent a rejection email at 2 a.m. Behind me, Sarah's heels clicked against the hardwood floor, those new designer heels she'd bought last month, the ones that cost more than our electric bill. "Did you even look for work today? Or did you just sit here feeling sorry for yourself?" Her voice cut through the morning silence like shattering glass. I turned to face my wife. 3 years ago, she'd looked at me like I hung the moon. Now, she looked at me like I was something she'd stepped on. "I had 2 interviews this week. I'm trying, Sarah. You know I'm trying." She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Trying isn't paying our bills. Trying isn't putting food on the table. Thank God one of us has a real career," she said. 6 months. That's how long it had been since the tech startup company I'd worked for went under, taking my 6-figure salary with it. And coincidentally, 6 months since Sarah got promoted to senior marketing director. That's 6 months since my life changed. "I'll find something soon," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. "Soon." She repeated the word like it tasted bitter. "You know what? I'm done covering for you. From now on, you can figure out your own meals. I'm not your mother." She grabbed her leather bag, another recent purchase, and walked toward the door. "I have a meeting with actual important people. Some of us have responsibilities." The door slammed behind her, rattling the eviction notice. I stood there in the silence, wondering when exactly I'd become someone she felt entitled to speak to like that. When had I become less than human in her eyes? The first few months after her promotion, I'd celebrated with her. I'd been proud. Sarah had worked hard, and she deserved the recognition. The raise was substantial, more than triple her previous salary. When I lost my job, I'd actually felt relieved that at least one of us was stable. "Don't worry," she'd said then, touching my face with gentle hands. "We're a team. We'll get through this together." But somewhere between month 2 and month 3, she changed completely. The touches stopped. The encouragement became criticism. The partnership became a hierarchy, and I was firmly at the bottom. It started small. She'd come home late, and when I'd ask about dinner, she'd say, "I already ate with colleagues. There's leftovers in the fridge, I guess." When I'd cook, she'd push the food around her plate and mention how her assistant had recommended this amazing new restaurant downtown as if I could afford to take her there. Then came the comments in front of friends. "Oh, don't ask him about career advice," she'd laughed at a dinner party, wine glass tilted in my direction. "He's taking an extended vacation from adulting." Everyone had laughed. I'd smiled like it was a joke, but something inside me had cracked. By month 6, she'd stopped pretending to be kind even in private. I started taking any work I could find. Uber driving at night. Freelance writing gigs that paid pennies per word. I sold my watch, my gaming console, my guitar, the one my father had given me before he died. Sarah noticed the guitar was gone. "Finally," she'd said. "Maybe now you'll have room for something useful like self-respect." I delivered groceries until 3 a.m. that night, came home, and found her asleep in our bed, sprawled across both sides like I didn't even exist. I slept on the couch, and that became routine. The second year was worse. Sarah started bringing people home, colleagues, she called them. They'd drink our wine, her wine, she'd correct me, and laugh loudly while I tried to work on my laptop in the bedroom. Once, I came out to grab water, and her boss, Richard, had looked me up and down. "So you're the house husband," he'd said, grinning. "Must be nice, living off your wife's success." Sarah had laughed. She hadn't defended me. She started doing other things too. Small, calculated cruelties that added up like paper cuts. She'd hide the car keys when she knew I had job interviews, claiming she forgot I needed them. I'd missed 3 interviews that way before I started taking the bus at 5 a.m. to be sure I'd make it. She'd throw away my mail, I thought it was junk she'd say, including callback notices from potential employers. She bought herself a new car, a sleek BMW, while I drove our old Honda that barely started. Then she sold the Honda without asking, saying we didn't need two cars since I didn't go anywhere important. For 2 weeks, I walked 4 miles to a warehouse job that paid $12 an hour. When I finally confronted her, she'd looked at me with cold eyes. I sold it because the insurance was expensive. If you had a real job, you could buy your own car. I have a job, Sarah. I'm working 60 hours a week between 3 different. Those aren't jobs, she cut it in. Those are what teenagers do for pocket money. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I'd been working on a major freelance project for weeks, a company website redesign that would pay $5,000. Real money. Enough to contribute substantially to our household. Enough to feel like a person again. The proposal was due at midnight. I'd been working on my laptop at the kitchen table when Sarah came home with her work friends. They were loud, drunk, celebrating someone's birthday. Can you guys maybe keep it down? I'd asked politely. I have a really important deadline. Oh my God, everyone, my husband has a deadline, Sarah had announced in a mocking voice. Her friends had laughed. For what? His Etsy store. Sarah, please. This is serious. You know what's serious? How embarrassing it is to have a husband who can't even afford to buy his own drink at a bar. She turned to her friends. Last week, he asked if I could spot him $20 for gas. $20. My face had burned. But you said it wasn't a problem. Because I felt sorry for you. God, do you know how pathetic it is? My friends ask me to lunch, and I have to check if my husband has maxed out our credit card on his little job search. Richard had chimed in then. Bro, have you considered just, getting your shit together? Sarah's carrying you hard. Something in me snapped. Get out, I'd said quietly. Excuse me. Sarah's eyes had flashed. Get out. All of you. This is my apartment, she'd hissed. I pay for it. You're here because I allow it. The room had gone silent. Her friends had looked uncomfortable, but no one had moved. You're right, I'd said, standing up. It is your apartment. Your money. Your life. And I'm done being your punching bag. I'd closed my laptop, grabbed my coat, and walked out. I spent that night in my car, the one I'd bought 2 days earlier with the last of my savings, a beat-up Toyota that cost $800. I'd been planning to surprise Sarah, to show her I was figuring things out. But instead, I drove out in it, heartbroken. I ended up at a 24-hour diner, ordered coffee I could barely afford, and opened my laptop. The proposal deadline had passed. I'd lost the contract. But as I sat there, staring at my reflection in the dark window, I realized something. I'd lost more than a contract. I'd lost myself. The man Sarah had married, the confident, ambitious man who believed he could build something meaningful, had disappeared. In his place was someone who apologized for existing, who walked on eggshells in his own home, who'd accepted cruelty as the price of survival. I thought about the last 2 years. Every insult. Every dismissive laugh. Every time she'd made me feel worthless. And I thought about what my father had told me before he died. Son, you can survive almost anything. But don't let anyone make you survive yourself. I'd been surviving myself. Shrinking. Disappearing. I pulled out my phone and texted Sarah, I'm not coming back. I'll get my things this week. Her response came immediately, fine. Run away like you run from everything else. Don't expect me to be here when you realize you can't make it without me. I turned off my phone. The first month alone was terrifying. I rented a room in a shared house for $400 a month. It had a mattress on the floor and a window that didn't close properly, but it was mine. No one mocked me there. I worked. Oh God, I really did work. The warehouse job. The freelance writing. Uber on weekends. I saved every penny. I ate ramen and rice. I didn't buy coffee, didn't buy new clothes, didn't buy anything except what I absolutely needed. But more importantly, I started building again. At the warehouse, I'd noticed massive inefficiencies in their inventory system. I'd mentioned it to my supervisor, expecting nothing. Instead, he'd asked me to write up a proposal. I did. I spent 3 nights after my shifts creating a comprehensive logistics software solution for their operation. They implemented it. It saved them $200,000 in the first quarter. They offered me a project manager position, and I took it. But I didn't stop there. I'd been sketching out an idea for months, a logistics platform that could help mid-sized warehouses and distribution centers optimize their operations. I'd seen the need firsthand. I spent every spare moment coding, learning, building. In 6 months, I launched a beta version. By month 7, 3 companies signed on. Month 9, I had 50 clients. Month 12, I had investors calling. In 2 years, my platform was valued at $25 million. I just closed a major Series B funding round when I ran into her. I was at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle, reviewing contracts on my laptop. I'd bought myself a new watch, nothing flashy, but nice. A reminder that I could. Oh my God. Is that you? I looked up. Sarah stood there, and for a moment, I barely recognized her. She looked tired. Older. Her clothes were still expensive, but something about her seemed diminished. Sarah. Wow. I heard you were doing well, but I didn't believe it. She laughed nervously. Can I sit? I gestured to the empty chair. She sat down, clutching her coffee cup. You look good. Really good. Thank you. I've been meaning to reach out, she said quickly. I've been thinking a lot about us. About how things ended. I waited. I was going through a lot back then, she continued. The stress of the new position, the pressure. I wasn't myself. I said things I didn't mean. You said exactly what you meant, I replied quietly. And you did exactly what you wanted to do. She flinched. That's not fair. We were both struggling. No. I was struggling. You were cruel. Silence settled between us. I made mistakes, she said finally, and I saw tears in her eyes. But we were married. We promised each other forever. Doesn't that mean anything? Doesn't what we had mean we deserve a second chance? I looked at her, really looked at her. Once, I would have done anything for this woman. I would have moved mountains. I had moved mountains, trying to be worthy of her love again. You know what I learned? I said. I learned that promises mean nothing if they're not backed by respect. You didn't just stop loving me, Sarah. You stopped seeing me as human. You threw away my mail. You sold my car without asking. You mocked me in front of your friends. You made me sleep on the couch in my own home. My voice was steady. You knew I was trying. You knew I was working multiple jobs. And instead of being my partner, you became my bully. I was angry, she whispered. I was scared we'd lose everything, and I took it out on you. But I've changed. I've grown. And I know you've grown too. Look at what you've built. We could build something even bigger together now, as equals. I closed my laptop. Here's the thing, Sarah. You thought I'd come back. You thought I needed you so badly that I'd accept anything. That eventually, I'd be grateful just to exist in your orbit again. She didn't deny it. But I don't need you. More importantly, I don't want a life with someone who only respects me when I'm successful. What happens the next time things get hard? What happens when the business hits a rough patch, or I get sick, or life just happens? It would be different, she muttered. It wouldn't, I said, because you showed me exactly who you are when things aren't perfect. You showed me what you think love looks like when it's inconvenient. I stood up, gathering my things. Wait, she said desperately. Please. I know I hurt you, but people make mistakes. Don't you believe in forgiveness? I paused. I do forgive you, Sarah. I had to, for my own peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean giving you another chance to make me feel worthless. So that's it. You're just going to walk away. No, I said. I walked away 2 years ago. This is just me choosing not to come back." I left her sitting there, and I didn't look back. 6 months later, I was featured in a business magazine. They asked me about success, about overcoming adversity, about what drove me. I told them the truth. I learned that you can't build anything real on a foundation of someone else making you feel small. The moment I started believing I deserved respect, even when I had nothing to offer but my effort, everything changed. They asked if I had regrets. "Only one," I said. "I regret not leaving sooner." My phone buzzed later that night. A text from an unknown number. "Saw your interview. I'm proud of what you've accomplished. I hope you're happy. S." I stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. Because I was happy. Not because of the money or the success or the validation. I was happy because I'd found myself again. The man who'd been slowly disappearing in that apartment, beneath the weight of constant criticism and contempt, he'd come back. Stronger. Clearer. Uncompromising in his belief that he deserved better. Sarah had thought I'd come back because she couldn't imagine I'd survive without her. Her pride had cost her everything. But my pride, the kind that says you're worth more than how someone treats you when you're down, had saved me. And that made all the difference.